All right. So, Michael, we've been working together for about 2 years now. Why don't you give us a bit of background on yourself and your journey and how you got started in real estate?
Yeah, so I started construction when I was probably 18 years old. I started a business in university, and I really love that. Love meeting a lot of people and learning about real estate. Eventually, after university, I ended up buying my first house in 2014, and I ended up converting that house into a 5-unit apartment building. And at the same time, I was building an off-grid waterfront cottage. And those are my first two projects that kind of really got me into real estate. I also invested in a, a condo in Sarnia in Western Ontario, and that did really well as well. And now we're building a triplex and focusing on larger developments in the Ontario area.
So, you mentioned a company in construction. Would that be your painting company?
Yeah, StudentWorks Painting was a kind of a franchise operator model where you would pay royalties and they teach you how to make a business. So I did that for 3 years and was quite successful at it.
3 years. That's awesome. Most people don't get past the first year.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, what would you say? Like, why did you stick with that company for so long? What was it? What about that business kind of kept you going, I guess?
Yeah, the learning was amazing. And also I wanted to do more with less time and effort. So as I got more experience, I learned how to stop the business and working on the business.
Hmm.
And I basically just could do the same amount of revenue and delegate the whole summer and have a lot more freedom. So the income was the same, and then the leisure time was just so much greater. So that was one of the big kind of mastering the business was kind of the key motivator. And then
Hmm.
I also came back to coach some other operators on how to run a business, and that was also a great learning experience too.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. As you know, I did college pro painters, but I only did it for about a year, and definitely taught me about the difference between working in the business and working on the business. I have took the approach of trying to do as much myself as I could, and it kind of wore me out. So, how did you take that leap from, working so hard trying to get your business off the ground to being able to scale and get more free time out of it? What did you have like is there something you can point to as a recipe for success in that avenue?
Yeah, it's all about trusting your employees that they can do a good of a job as you can.
Hmm.
That was very difficult in the beginning because you just assume, or I assumed originally that, okay, well, people can't just drive the ladders around because I have the roof racks and everything to hold the ladders in place to get to the job sites. And they don't really understand how to manage a calendar and how to set people up for production. They don't really understand material selection yet. But instead of just having that mindset, I said, what if like I taught them how to do it?
Hmm.
And what if I can just get them to find people with a car, with a roof rack to get to the job sites, and then I wouldn't have to do any of that. So trying to identify the key factors that were slowing us down on the business side to getting people to do what I was doing
Hmm.
was definitely key.
Brilliant. That's great. So tell me, after your painting company, you then was that when you started investing in real estate with your Sarnia apartment?
The first project I did was the single family I converted into 5 units.
Okay.
Then I bought that without the development process. Then I bought the condo. Then I converted the house into 5 units, and then I started the waterfront cottage was actually started before the 5 unit building as well.
Hmm. Okay. So what would you say would be like one of a pivotal experience in your life, like a circumstance that impacted you on your personal development and journey?
Well, definitely getting started with the painting business and learning that what you put in is what you get out
Hmm.
was really big because I used to work in bussing tables when I was probably 14, 15 years old or something along that line. And I was, is what seemed logical at the time was, if you're getting paid by the hour, and there's no difference in your pay, what's the point of killing yourself at the job for the same amount of money as just doing what's required.
Hmm.
But when I learned that you can reap the rewards of every extra effort you put in, it was a game changer. So I remember I made something like $1,700 in a few days, and that was the exact same amount as I made the whole summer scrubbing toilets, bussing tables. And I realized then that if you focus on the right things, where it's kind of results based or outcome based,
Hmm.
and you can use leverage of effort and time and building a team, you can be much more successful and get a higher rate of return on your time spent. So that was a huge pivotal moment for me. I would also say that personal development was probably the one of the biggest factors. This concept about integrity I learned in at Landmark Education, one of the largest personal development courses or companies in the world, and they just talked about this thing about doing what you say and getting clear on what you mean and not having people project what they want out of you and just making sure that you're clear on what your goals are for
Hmm.
whatever the case may be if you're committed to a certain action item and you deliver on that. So there, I basically my word meant something to me
Hmm.
after that point on. So if I said I was going to do something, I would do it, and if I didn't say I was going to do it, I wouldn't get worried about getting caught up in somebody else's projections on. It's like, well, hey, we never had an agreement. Sorry, there probably is a miscommunication, but at the end of the day, if I didn't commit to something, I don't have to deliver on it. And if I do, I have to, or I have to kind of make amends to the relationship where things get broken down.
Okay.
So that
So
was probably one of the most powerful things. Yeah.
okay, just so I'm clear, it sounds to me like it started off with a realization that you would have a much better return on your time by investing in yourself, and
Yeah.
then mm, follow through would be the next key component of that.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last component there I heard was your word is your bond, and that when you agree to do something, your follow through with other people is just as important as your ability to execute for yourself. Is that correct?
That's right.
Awesome. So how did these experiences and this new perspective lead you to advance down this trajectory of real estate and then into development where we are today?
Yeah, I continued after that personal development workshop to go to other ones. I went to Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, Millionaire Mindset Intensive, and those got me really excited for learning how to become rich because um, originally, I think the first big investment I made, it was like 50% of my net worth, and it was in a penny stock that just crashed 50% very quickly. And I just realized like I don't know how to invest. If
Mm.
I didn't know anything about value, I just went on speculation and I lost pretty much half of my net worth at the age of like, I don't know, 19 or 20 or 21.
I think a
And
lot
it
of
was
us
just
do
such
that. First dive into the
yeah.
stock market, and it's pretty rude awakening when things don't go your way.
Yeah, and I think the framework is so important, just kind of identifying like what is my investment strategy and
Mm-hmm.
then writing it down and then seeing if you're doing what you say you're going to do, regardless of the results. And over time, kind of looking back and seeing, did I follow through on my strategy? And for me, let's just say a common strategy is you buy low fee index funds over time, or you only build real estate in certain areas or certain cap rates, and certain amount of return. And if you deviate from those rules, a lot of the time you can get burned pretty bad. And then you look back at that sheet that you made about your commitments around what to do with investments, and you realize, oh, I veered too far. I got too
Mm-hmm.
excited about the speculative investment or whatever and it's no good. So it's really important to be reminded to get back on the knowledge that you learned for how to develop properly or how to invest properly or how to pick the right stocks. For example, like a
Mm-hmm.
value investing with Warren Buffett or something like that. So the books definitely helped a lot with learning and development that helped
Mm-hmm.
me get to where I am today.
Yeah, the strategy and sticking with your plan rather than chasing the shiny object or that fear of missing out is so important in investing. That's a lesson I learned. back at when GameStop was going through the roof, and all my friends were like, "Oh, let's diamond hands, let's invest in GameStop, let's stick it to the man." And I'm like, "Okay, could I make a lot of money? Maybe. Is this a good investment? Probably not." And sure enough, I lost a bunch of money on that. That's a valuable lesson for everyone to learn that, when you're investing, it's important to be disciplined and to stick with your plan. So going from that and learning and losing half your net worth as a young guy, why did you decide to stick with it rather than pivot into something else?
I hit rock bottom around the age of probably mid 20s, and I got conned from a construction project. So my Maitland project ended up um, I ended up getting help from somebody who acted as a best friend for a year, and he was connected to a lot of people I knew. So I trusted him, and he came in and he demolished my house, and he said he was going to build it for free because I'm like a brother to him. And eventually, he got access to my credit cards, and because he would let me drive his Mercedes, his Ford trucks. He would give me access to this cottage. So he built some incredible trust with me over a year. And then, of course, I said, yeah, sure. Like he's like, oh, I'm gonna go pick up the stuff. It's just I gotta go buy materials. What's your PIN? And I didn't really think much about it because he was supposed to be like a great friend
Hmm.
that was giving me so much value already in terms of all these perks and everything. So I believed him, and he would show me all these different properties, and he would literally walk me inside all these investment properties. So he showed that there was real projects going on. He had real employees that spoke highly of him. But then eventually everything came collapsing down when I started getting a knock on the door saying, "Where's my money?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He says, "That person hasn't paid me for this job yet." And I said, "What are you saying?" He says he pulled in a favor for free, and it was a $5,000 demolition job. So he's like, "I'm going to put a lien on your house. This is awful. I'm going to dump trash on your place." And it was pretty brutal. And then I called him. He didn't pick up. I called his employees. He ended up getting pulled over on a truck that wasn't his. And then he
Wow.
had to flee the city. And then I went to the cottage that he was giving me access to, and there was a note on the door saying, "You haven't paid me in months."
Hmm.
So everyone that was involved basically got destroyed, and there was probably over $500,000 of damages on people's credit cards across Ottawa and the rental market. So he was a serial con artist, and he ended up going to jail for it. But that was hitting that rock bottom and saying, I never want to be in this place again. My house was being supported by a 2x4, and it was structural, and the roof was sinking, so my house could have collapsed. And yeah, it wasn't a great spot to be in. I couldn't rent out the unit. I had all my credit cards were maxed out from him, and I was basically I just signed up for the MBA, which was an $80,000 program. So I had pretty much a negative net worth because I bought a house, and there's CMHC interest or insurance on it. So it was $17,000 or $9,000 for that policy, and then plus now it's bare bones down to drywall. So the house value went down. I was committed to a bunch of stuff, and I realized my net worth was like minus $80,000 or something like that. And I ended up just realizing that if I don't start changing the way I'm gonna be and financially, I just couldn't ever get back to that same position.
Yeah.
So I made that commitment, read a bunch of books, and got out of it, and everything changed from that point on.
Hmm. So what were the main lessons you learned from that experience?
Due diligence is so important,
Hmm.
and mitigating risk. So if I just had done due diligence on him, I say, hey, look, show me how much money you have. Show me your net worth. Show me contracts you have. Um, just show me car ownership.
Hmm.
You're letting me drive all these cars. Show me the back of the car. Does it say your name on it? And is it rented? Is it owned? So you can search up people's properties. And if I did that on his cottage, I would have found out it wasn't his property. So if you catch someone saying they have multiple properties and they're not in their name, that's a huge red flag because they're lying. So if I just done a bit more due diligence before trusting so much,
Hmm.
it just seemed like there was only upside because I was getting free stuff. The deal was too good to be true. Hey, I'm gonna demolish and renovate your house. All you gotta do is pay for materials. I'll put my guys on here between my jobs. You're like a brother to me. Sounds good. let's do it. That'll save me a bunch of money, and then you
Hmm.
get screwed.
Yeah. Wow. What an incredible story. Yeah. It's too bad you had to learn those lessons the hard way, but it sounds like you're better off for it.
Oh, I'm grateful for them because they're cheap. They're cheap lessons. I probably between 20 and $40,000 was probably the damage for him.
Hmm.
Um, and the stocks were probably close to $8,000 or something when I was pretty young. And you look at that now, and if you have the higher your net worth is, the more you can lose. So if I lost 50% of my net worth today, that would be way too expensive.
Hmm.
So I'm glad for these lessons you pay in cash.
Hmm. For sure. So tell me a bit more about the other individuals who, besides this charlatan, who played a significant impact on your life, a significant influence.
I'd say th there's a lot of people. I find people that are that get me into doing certain things that change my life forever, like going to that personal development workshop or going to that first real estate workshop or getting a specific book. So there's generally mentors along the way that help me get these life-changing events that go on, whether it's a personal development workshop, whether it's a property, whether it's a certain job. My parents obviously are huge influences in my life. They helped me so much along the way, giving me good guidance. My dad showed me just the highest level of ethics and that I've ever seen in anybody. If somebody gives him money that was not right at like a restaurant and it was off by any amount that wasn't correct, on the negative side, he would bring it up. So even if he profited off somebody miscalculating the change, he couldn't even, like, if no one was looking, no one would know. He would walk away and he would still do it. So like maintaining that integrity when no one's watching
Hmm.
was really, really important to see what, like, that's a good father because it's
Hmm.
instilling by doing. And then my mom just being super authentic is huge. She's just herself, good or bad. It's amazing. So I appreciate both of those, kind of like chaos and order. But yeah, lots of mentors in my life. Some of them you know, and they've definitely helped along the way, buying assets and teaching us the ways.
Sounds like some great role models there, and the antithesis of that charlatan you dealt with. So you
Yeah.
get to see both sides of the coin, and which side of life you want to you want to structure your own ethics and values. That sounds great.
Mhm.
So tell me a bit about your achievements outside of real estate, because I know they're quite substantial and extensive. I know you're a top-notch athlete, and you're highly focused in a lot of areas outside of real estate. Can you give me a bit more about that?
Yeah, I've completed a lot of different triathlon distances from Olympic to half Ironman to full Ironman. So those were I love taking on these large challenges that can take a significant amount of time investment for training. Sometimes it's up to 25 hours a week, where you're basically biking, swimming, or running every day, twice a day. So it's like a swim bike or something like that, or a run swim or any of those combinations, and it's pretty much 7 days a week nonstop. And some of the biggest training days can get up to over 5, 6, 7 hours in one day. So a Sunday you could bike for 4 or 5 hours and go for a swim for an hour. And on those days afterwards, you just feel sometimes a mix of emotions. One is you just accomplished the furthest thing you've ever done in your life for a training day. And then the other one is the amount of pain you have, and your muscles are all messed up, but then you also have the pain relief your body naturally gives you. So it's like this massive drug of trying to get your body to be in less pain. So go pursuing a goal and overcoming obstacles, like pushing your boundaries of where you can push them and for how long, is always something I've been interested in. Recently, I just did the 160-kilometer ski marathon, which is over 2 days. It's called the Coureur des Bois. It's a Canadian ski marathon. It's the oldest running ski marathon in North America, and it's incredibly challenging. It was probably over 20 hours of work. So the Ironman I did in under 13 hours, around 12:42, and then this one was close to probably 20 hours of nonstop, or with one break. So it was about, I think, 9 to 10 hours or something like that each day. And during that time, my skis weren't really meant for something of that caliber because they were all worn down and I didn't have the right type of skis. And it was very difficult to manage that distance. And eventually I pulled my leg and pulled my chest falling down and also just because my skis weren't slipping. So I had to go like 50 kilometers with a pulled hip flexor muscle where there was like a shooting pain that was almost unbearable. And those are the moments that I find make you because you have all these voices telling you to slow down and stop and you've done enough, come home, everything's okay. You did 100 and something kilometers or whatever. That's good enough, right? You've gone the furthest you've ever been. When's enough? And then you just say, well, that's not what I committed to. And I
Hmm.
committed to if no matter what happens, I will make it to the finish line unless I get pulled out by, a helicopter or some accident that's so treacherous that I have to go to the hospital. So
Hmm.
that was the line. It was like no matter how much the pain, hospitalization is where the line is, and I can't quit until then. So I ended up finishing the race, and it was an incredible accomplishment.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. 160 kilometers.
Yeah.
I can't imagine doing that except unless I'm in a car.
Yeah, it's pretty far.
So, how would you say that these experiences and this motivation that you have to push yourself to your limits and to explore that, how how does that feed into your real estate strategy and your professional goals?
Yeah, I can definitely push through tasks very well. So if there's a lot of things to do and needs to get done and it's time sensitive, and there's a good motivation around a huge upside for finances, I can definitely power through that. So I think the endurance is very important. The amount of training or pushing through that needs to get done can be used in the business side. So if there's a lot of tasks I need to get done and I have to work a long day to get something done before a deadline to close on a property, I'll definitely do all of that.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where there's synergies.
Would you say that your experience with, your past challenges, with the charlatan and, being your personal net worth impacts, and then on top of your own personal fitness and other activities, would you say that gives you a competitive advantage when it comes to real estate investing and your approach to real estate development?
Yeah, absolutely. If I know what I'm capable of doing.
Hmm.
I've been in a situation where I've had to push through 5 hours in excruciating pain in order to overcome a goal that it doesn't really matter. It's just a commitment that I made, right? It wasn't like I'm going to die if I don't do it. So in the same manner, that is so crucial for competitive advantage because I know what I'm capable of doing, and the activities that I do are the endurance feats are top 1% or less of people are able to accomplish these types of things or willing to accomplish these things. So
Hmm.
that gives me a huge upside in the mindset. I believe that I can accomplish things and I also validate that through these endurance challenges.
Hmm.
So I know what I'm capable of doing also in the business sphere.
But it also means that when things get difficult and when it seems like, you know, there's a lot going on, you don't panic, right? You're used to things being difficult and you're able to maintain your mindset and a clear head to figure it out. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, everything's solvable for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of investors, especially in real estate development, see challenges pop up and they kind of have a bit of a mental breakdown, thinking, "Oh, it's going to be easy." But development is quite the opposite. The challenge in real estate development is you're always solving new problems as they come. And I think certainly from the background you've described to me and your mindset, it kind of positions you as an ideal person to be leading a development project because you don't panic when something goes off skew. You say, okay, let's get it back on track. Let's figure out how do we do this and let's get it done. I think
Yeah.
that's a
And
huge
what's great
advantage.
too is that a lot of the time when that stuff happens, that's when I get activated.
Hmm.
That's kind of the secret sauce is, for example, I was building the Britannia project and all of a sudden we're trying to pour and there's all these delays that happen and then it snows and the hole that we excavated is now covered in snow and we need to put the foundation on bedrock and it's full of ice and compressed stone and we were going to wait and delay the project, or that was the recommendation from the project manager. Let's wait 3 months until the summer comes and let's get it done. And I went out there at night with the snowblower and a shovel, and I cleared all the snow at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Neighbors probably thought I was crazy. And then I called around everybody I knew, and I found some people that would do this for a living.
Hmm.
And they said that there's a certain procedure you can do to melt all the snow and chip away all the rocks, and they were qualified to do it. And then within 2 days, everything was done. They were setting up the framing for the foundation.
Hmm. That's awesome. So you get it done when it needs to get done.
Yeah,
You don't have excuses. You don't put things off. If something needs to get done, you do it.
yeah.
I love it. So what's the end goal for you, Michael? Like what's your long-term vision for yourself and where do you see our development ventures going?
I would say financial freedom at a very good lifestyle is always very important to me. I find once you get to a certain level where money doesn't matter, you can really enjoy life at a different level, is what I believe to be true. And then also, it makes what you're focusing on. A lot of people, I talk to friends that are multi-millionaires, decamillionaires, and they still do the work afterwards because they like the game. So once you make all the money and you're pursuing that and you have the freedom, now you're like, okay, well, just gonna do it for the fun of it. And then you kind of level up in a different way because you're just focused for the fun of it instead of to pursue a means to an end.
Hmm. So for you, it's about the freedom to do the things that you value the most, and
Yeah,
live your best life sort of thing.
absolutely.
Awesome. I think that's a great point to stop. Thank you so much, Michael, for sitting down and answering these questions. It's great to hear your story and get the real truth behind you and your development. And yeah, I appreciate your time.